What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Fancast Live podcast. In today's episode, I've got my boy Jamie Hollywood Barrett joining me once again. We're going to strictly talk New York Rangers hockey today. If we get a chance, we're going to dive into the New York Giants and what we saw for during the Combine this weekend. But I don't know if we're going to have enough time. We had some technical difficulties, so we're going to try to squeeze this in as quickly and as much as we can. So, Jamie, we are heading down the stretch with these New York Rangers. We've got a 40-17-4 record. We've got 84 points. Right now they're playing the Florida Panthers at Madison Square Garden tonight. After one period, the Rangers are up 1-0, so that's a good sign. Will Cooley, I think, was the goal scorer in the first period. So we're ahead of the Florida Panthers. We've got about 20 games remaining after tonight.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
If we beat the Florida Panthers tonight, we'll tie them with the most points in the league at 86. Unless something changes between now and the end of the game, we're hoping that the Rangers take this game because, quite honestly, I think tonight's game against Florida is very, very important because I want to start off by saying this. A lot of people aren't taking the New York Rangers very seriously. A lot of people feel that the New York Rangers are a fraud and that they don't belong at the top of the league. Now, listen, we spoke about this briefly on many occasions during the course of the season, and the Rangers got off to a really, really hot start as compared to last year where they were only one game over 500 after 21 games. This year they were literally at the top, and everybody was just waiting for them to take the dive back down to reality. And quite honestly, with the exception of a stretch, I think the longest losing streak we had this year was 3 games?
I don't even think we got to 3 games. I think it was 2, and then we had a tie. So I don't think we've had 3 games.
So even better than that. And recently I'm on Twitter, and a lot of people are hating on the Rangers, even though the Rangers right now are second in the power rankings. They're 2 points behind Florida, but as up to I think up to last night or the night before, the Rangers were tied with Florida after taking that point against Toronto, and a disappointing loss. But yet, it was good to see them get 1 point out of Toronto in Toronto.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about that? Have you been on Twitter and have you seen these tweets about people hating on the Rangers for being at the top of the league still, even after they thought they were going to take a dive after the hot start?
Yeah, it's great to be on. I mean, the Twitter, so where I get on Twitter, or what I notice from X now, whatever it is Ranger fans are very, I don't know if it's, are you talking about Ranger fans or NHL fans that are getting
I'm talking about Ranger fans, some Ranger fans, but mostly
the Ranger fan
NHL
historically,
fans.
The Ranger fan historically is things are going well, we're going to win the Stanley Cup, and then things are going we lose a game or two, we got to fire everybody. I think we need to kind of find our middle ground here a little bit. So X is a dangerous place. It really is. And nothing good comes out of it. But I think the Rangers are somewhere right in the middle. I mean, there's a lot of teams in the NHL. If you look, you got to look at the Vegas odd makers too. The Rangers, I should have looked this up before. I don't know if you could pull it up, but the Rangers have to be one of the favorites to win. Vegas Golden Knights, it's hard to repeat. Older players, they've been injuries all year. Vancouver, the Jets, there's a lot of other good teams out west that haven't really proven themselves in a while, that are having good seasons themselves, yet no one talks bad about them. The Rangers have a better goaltender than all of those places, even if Shesterkin is average, he's better. The Boston Bruins had a great start to the season. They lost their 2 best centers. They're still playing well. They're well coached, but how good are they going to be in the playoffs? And they lost last year when they were supposed to win it all. Tampa Bay is on their last run. I don't see them making much noise. I think they've just had too many deep runs in the playoffs. Toronto, have they done anything the past several years to prove that they can take the next step? They always choke. They have no defense. They continue to have no goaltending. They're going to have a great regular season and put up fancy numbers and be on SportsCenter highlights. But, who's the team? The Devils, they just fired their coach today. The Flyers don't have anybody. I mean, are they even – the Hurricanes, they're a very strong team. They're a system team. They're well coached, but there's no superstars there.
Exactly.
And until they beat the Rangers in the playoffs, which the Rangers have beaten them in the playoffs the last several go-arounds, there's no reason to believe that the Rangers can't be a favorite to win. Now, I'm not going to bump my chest and say we're going to win. I just think that's foolish on so many levels. And when people did that at 18-4, I said that was foolish. This team has flaws. We weren't doing 5-on-5 scoring. We talked about that. Then I think the league caught up to us. Not as many power play goals, not getting enough, depth scoring. You lose Heedle for extended period of time. Kakko, you're putting up these minor league AHL players. Eventually, you're going to run into a tough stretch. The All-Star break came at a great time. Shesterkin got his confidence back. He's been great. I think you gave me the stats today, 7-0, 1.7. That's an elite goaltending performance. The only goal, the goals against Toronto the other day were, not really his fault. One was a fan shot, poor defensive play, and then the other one was tipped off Gustafsson. So he hasn't let in many of these soft goals recently. He's on a good streak. I think the Rangers need to be confidently optimistic and cautious about it, but I think the Rangers do need to add pieces. They can't go in with this roster and expect to win, I think, against a team like Carolina. But if the Rangers can add a center to play on the third line and a right wing to play on the top line, you slide Kakko in the lineup, or we'll see if he's here still. We'll talk about that. Rangers are in a great position right now because not only are the top line guys firing, and they have room to improve even in terms of Mika Zibanejad, you could say. But their goaltending is starting to heat up too. And they're also have a chance to get home ice. So if they can get home ice for a few rounds or keep that number one spot, tough to go in the Garden, man, and win a series when you're playing against a hot goalie. So I'll let the people kind of dispute on X and Twitter all they want, but I like where we're at as a Rangers fan. We need to add. Let's just be healthy the rest of the year and just get in the playoffs and see what happens.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think the Rangers are pretty good contenders right now. Again, I think they're, like you said, they're one or two pieces away from being legitimate contenders for the Stanley Cup. I'm not talking about contenders for the playoffs because we know they're going to get there. They are a right wing and they are a center away from making that happen. And with the trade deadline coming up on Friday, you have to be quite confident that Chris Drury is going to do something between today and Friday's deadline and make a move or two or maybe even three to bring in some more depth here to help the New York Rangers going down the stretch with 20 games to go. You mentioned it. Shesterkin has been unbelievable, specifically the month of February. He was perfect, 7-0, 1.72 goals against average, and a .954 save percentage. That is what we were expecting out of Igor for the entire season. Yep. He got off to a pretty slow start, but thankfully we had a guy named Jonathan Quick who just got a 1-year extension on his contract. The Rangers are going to keep him around for 2025, and rightfully so. He earned that 1-year extension because, quite honestly, he's been really, really good this year. And I was optimistic when the Rangers signed Quick because of the year he had last year, and being that he's 38 years old, you're thinking to yourself, why go out and spend money on a guy that's 38 years old who's probably pretty much done? And he's proven everybody, myself, totally wrong. This guy has been phenomenal, and if it wasn't for Jonathan Quick, being that Shesterkin was struggling at times during the a better portion of the first half of the season, I don't know where we would be right now. We probably wouldn't be in first place. And quite honestly, Jonathan Quick helped us get there.
Sure did.
If there's anybody that I am concerned with at this point, at this juncture in the season, it's got to be Mika Zibanejad. And I'm not saying that he hasn't played well this season, because he has. He plays up and down that ice with every piece of strength that he's got. He is very good defensively, offensively. He's good in transition. He just has not been able to finish like we have seen him finish in years past. Mm-hmm. I think he's got, 22 goals on the season? I mean, that's not too shabby, but 22 goals at this point of the season, I think last year he had over 30.
Yeah, we're used to a little bit more.
Exactly. I'm a bit concerned. He's got, I think, 5 goals, 5-on-5 this year. And all 5 of those goals came in 4 games this season. I think he had 2 goals in 1 game where he had 5-on-5. That to me is concerning. And plus his scoring on the power play, specifically goals, is down this year as well. So that to me is a bit concerning. I like to see Mika Zibanejad get to the point where he was last year. specifically now going down the stretch as the Rangers prepare for some type of deadline deal here to where they can improve this team going into the playoffs. But you want them to start getting hot at the right time so that when the Rangers do get in the playoffs, you know that you're gonna get some scoring. I mean, don't get me wrong, it hasn't just been Mika on 5-on-5. This team has had its troubles scoring 5-on-5, through the course of the season. That has to change, specifically going into the playoffs, because the game is going to get tighter, defenses are going to get stronger, and you need 5-on-5 scoring. You can't just rely on the power play to score. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Mika has been, he's been the best trade arguably in the history of the Rangers. We bring it every time we get together. He's been Mr. New York Ranger since he's been here. He had some hot years in a row where the bubble year he went absolutely crazy. He's had 41 goals in 56 games, and then he's had goals, a point per game player, and he's had highlight reel goals. I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into that. I think he plays on both ends of the ice, a lot. And then he's also on penalty killing as well. I think Laviolette could do, I think he's done a phenomenal job with this group, but I could see them managing his power penalty kill minutes a little bit. I mean, I think Kreider as well in tight games, they'll put him on the penalty kill. But I think that managing his minutes is going to be effective. He plays a demanding two-way game, and Laviolette's game is more defensive structured for the center role. It's just when you play with Artemi Panarin, Trocheck is always on the board. But it's almost an anomaly because Panarin is so special. We'll get to him and how he's having an MVP type of season, and he's actually shooting more on the power play where he would maybe defer to Mika. Mika one-timers, I think teams they really know to isolate him, and Mika sometimes could be a little burnt out. So I think with Mika, let's keep him healthy, let's keep him involved. But Mika, to me, we got to make sure he's ready for the playoffs. So yes, he's had a little bit of a down year, but some people have picked up the slack on other parts of the lineup, and I think his value in terms of face-offs, defensive play, the way that he skates and penetrates the zone, I think is very important. Let's also remember too, Blake Wheeler, and we really wish him the best recovery, and sincerely, he just did not have NHL speed this year. Then you had Jimmy Vesey, Kakko was out, so there was a good stretch of games where there really wasn't much of an option other than Kreider. Kreider is a motion player that needs the puck off the rush. He's not a guy that's going to set up plays in the zone. He's not a sniper that's going to get open quick and shoot. He's really on the rush his game. So I think the lack of having that winger alongside Zibanejad and Kreider, there's a reason why the Rangers are looking at Vatrano and Duclair and these other players, is because they know that if they have that missing piece, that's 33% of the line. I mean, that's a big, in hockey, it's a winger that's not on the same page as the other forwards. It is a big deal. You need to have that cohesion. Lafreniere is benefiting from that cohesion very well, and Trocheck is getting his scoring up at that center position. I think because Kakko has not been in the lineup long enough, and he's naturally not a finisher, plays good defense, but he's not a natural finisher. I think and because Wheeler did not have NHL speed, I think those could be two maybe excuses. Maybe they're reasons, but I think there could be some reasons why Mika's not at 30 goals right now and 75 points. But objectively, I think Mika's doing a lot of really good things for the team.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
He's going to get a spark. We're going to get a guy at the deadline. He's going to be ready to go. I mean, I know you're a little bit more negative on him than I am right now, but I think once we get another guy that can really solidify that spot, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, and with the trade deadline coming along in the next few days, I think Chris Drury is going to definitely make a move here. I mean, I can't see how the Rangers stay pat. We're going to get into more of the trade deadline in a few minutes. We're just going to continue going down the stretch here and with what's going on right now. The defense, obviously, we've got a lot of skilled players on defense. For me, my opinion is they haven't been physical enough. I know Jacob Trouba is a very physical guy, and he's probably the only guy back there that really, really gets physical. As far as Keandre Miller is concerned, a lot of people are getting down on him because of the fact that he just doesn't play a physical game when really needed to. What are your thoughts on Keandre Miller right now?
I love his game. I think we're getting him at a bargain contract as well. I think we got him on 3 years. He's got elite skill. I mean, he's got high end skill. You put him on in the 3-on-3, he's gonna produce. Playoffs, it's a little bit different with the 5-on-5 overtime, but he's a guy you want on the 3-on-3. I think if Fox wasn't as dominant on the power play, he'd get time too. I mean, Miller, yeah, could he play more physical? Probably. But he when doing body positioning like against the other team's top forwards, he does a really good job. He protects the net. He rides people off to the side really well. He clears the puck. He logs a ton of minutes. I mean, look, I mean, we're first place, and like there's the Ranger fan is always going to find something. I mean, Shesterkin, that's criticism that, is warranted because now Shesterkin's making $5 million. If Shesterkin was making $10 million, there's uproar. But his performance at the beginning of the season wasn't good. And I think his criticism was deserved because there were games where it's like, man, if he just kind of had it together, we probably don't go in that little bit of a slump. And needed Jonathan the Quick to do that. And there wasn't that controversy. I mean, so that's legitimate. Kakko criticism, I think, is legitimate. He's a number 2 overall pick. I mean, he's not playing like a number 2 overall pick. Even though like he plays really hard. I mean, it comes down to production at that price point, like in terms of a pick. I mean, so people are always going to pick at something. I mean, Miller, when I see him play, great skater, closes people out of the play, gets involved when he has to. Occasionally he'll score a big goal, but he's not required to be the number 1 guy. I mean, I think he has all the tools of a terrific athlete and player. He never gets tired. I mean, you want him to hit more people. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Trouba does. We don't have to play that extraordinarily physical style. I mean, I think we're starting to play more physical. I think Trocheck brings an edge. I think we might have to bring in someone that has more of an edge. I like how I like how Cooley's been very physical. He's been a more physical part of our team, and Brzezinski and Goodrow and VC, and I think our bottom 6 has been pretty physical. And we also don't want to be out of position either. I mean, a lot of people get on Miller, but for what we're paying him and the type of athlete he is and how he plays, I don't really see much. I think he brings he's not killing, he's not hurting us. He's not like getting walked every game where people are just scoring on him. I'm not seeing that either. So again, it's the Ranger fan that is going to find the negative.
We've seen a good share of odd man rushes though going the other way during the course of the last few weeks, specifically in games that the Rangers have lost and struggled, even though sometimes they came back and won games. But the odd man, this is all stuff that the Rangers really need to clean up heading down a stretch here towards the trade deadline, towards the end of the season, and into the playoffs, because these are the kind of mistakes you don't want this team to make during the course of a series against some of the top teams in this division. And a lot of people are saying that there's a good possibility that the 2 teams facing off tonight, the Panthers and the Rangers, could be facing off in the Eastern Conference Final. Now I'm looking at the score now, and Florida is up 2-1, and that's a bit concerning, especially going into the second period, leading 1-0. So that that's a concern of mine. We've hit on Mika, we've hit on Shesterkin. We can't go on without talking about Matt Rempe. This kid, it was called up. Maybe he was specifically called up because of his size and strength and being a guy who could throw down with some of the toughest guys in this league. Maybe the Rangers needed that, but I think on more than one occasion he has sparked the New York Rangers.
Sure.
With his physical play and his fights. I mean, granted, I think that fight against Olivier, I think he got his ass whooped. But the other fights he had, even against Reeves against Toronto, I mean, he held up his own against Reeves. I thought that was a pretty good fight. I don't know. I couldn't give you who won exactly in that fight. I think Reeves might have gotten an extra punch in there. But at the beginning of that fight, Rempe was getting his jabs in there as he's holding his jersey.
Yeah, those do a lot.
Those do a lot. So
Big boy.
that was kind of see. I mean, he's a big kid. He's really sparked this team. They appreciate
Yeah.
the things that the dirty things that most players don't like to do. He's going out there and doing them. And you know what's funny about that game against Toronto? I think Reeves had approached him earlier in the game to fight, and at that point the Rangers were up 1-0, and I think Rempe took a look at the bench, or maybe he thought to himself, maybe this is not a good time for me to fight. We are up 1-0. There's really no sense for me to throw down my gloves and fight. But
Right.
then later on in the game when the Rangers were down, I think he even took a peek over at the bench, and Laviolette probably gave him the nod. Yeah, go ahead, kid. Let's
Yeah.
spark things up. And then before you knew it, the Rangers had tied the game, forcing overtime. Granted, they lose it in a shootout, but they do get with the 1 point against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, what are your thoughts on Matt Rempe so far?
He's been a spark plug. I mean, he look. I mean, I think that part. You first of all, you're getting a huge human being, young, wants to prove himself. He that came up from the minors. You don't have to pay for him. You don't have to trade away anybody or take a slot away from anybody. We got some guys out, so I think it's a good fit for us. I think he's going to find his way in the lineup. I think the team knows that he's there. It helps a lot of our skill guys kind of relax. We all remember the Tom Wilson throwing Panarin to the ice. They bring in Reeves. Reeves. He's going to want to get paid more. So it's good to have that bouncer, if you will, on the bench if anything goes down. You're going to need him, especially for a team like Florida, who has a lot of scrappy guys that like to, kind of get in the mix. And he can go up against a heavyweight. So if there's a real big scenario where, it comes down to a heavyweight fight, he's going to be able to provide that. And I think the Rangers have the edge on a few playoff teams with that, with him and Trouba. Cooley doesn't mind throwing down the mitts. Schneider can fight. You've seen Schneider fight. He can fight too. Trocheck, if he has to, he's called upon. Lindgren. So the Rangers have a lot of grit, with a lot of their, supporting role players. So I think Rempe just adds that. He's the main enforcer. A lot of the other guys aren't pressured to have to step up and do something when they can just kind of go play. Asking Barclay Goodrow to fight somebody, at 30 something years old, he's a fourth line guy. He's, you really you want a guy that Rempe that knows his role. He's not going to take a lot of minutes, but he's going to come in and take care of something if he has to. It frees up the lineup. I think the fans love it. It's a great story. He's taken on the league by storm, and I'm happy for him. And he's going to help us win too. I mean, we're going to need contributions from every line. And when we make deadline acquisitions, it's going to be interesting to see if he stays in the lineup. I think Edstrom has his moments, but I think the Rangers will probably slide VC down to the fourth line and Brzezinski. And I think Brzezinski see a scenario where, unless Kakko gets moved, then I think maybe there's a spot for him. But love Rempe. The kids love him. The players love him. The fans love him. So happy that we got him. And, hopefully he can, get some more wins under his belt here. So we're rooting for him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's definitely been a spark for the New York Rangers. I mean, you got two monsters on that fourth line, and Rempe and Edstrom.
Right.
So, but I mean, one, maybe even both of those guys could be out of the lineup once the trade deadline comes around, depending on what Chris Drury does at the trade deadline. I think if Drury gets a winger and a center, then Rempe might stay in the lineup, and maybe Edstrom might be a healthy scratch, or maybe even send back down to AHL. Who knows? Well, that still remains to be seen. But let's hit on the trade deadline, because I know that's something me and you went back and forth on today, and wondering what the Rangers are going to do. I mean, pretty much there's a lot of chatter out there on what the Rangers are potentially looking at right now. Some of the bigger names that we've heard is obviously Alex Wenberg of the Kraken. We've heard Frank Vetrano come up. We've heard Jordan Eberle. Who's the other guy? Adam Henrique.
Yep.
I know there's been conversations with the Anaheim Ducks in regard to a possible trade with the Ducks for Adam Henrique and Frank Vetrano on a package deal. to me, as skilled as those two players are, and I like them a lot, and I can't stand Adam Henrique because of the fact that he scored that overtime goal against the Rangers, that eliminated the Rangers from the playoffs
That was
quite a few
so
years
long ago.
back. Yeah, but the fact of the matter is Adam Henrique is going to. He's got $3.65 million left on the contract, but he's under contract this year and next year. And then you have Vetrano, who's also signed through 2025 at 3.65 million. So I mean, it's not a whole lot of money. It's probably doable, but I guarantee you that who's the GM over there in Anaheim? It's Verbeek
Over where?
in Anaheim. I think it's
I
Verbeek.
lost you, dude. I think that's tough timing.
D-
Do I got you?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, cool. Pat Verbeek, I think, is a
Pat
GM. And
Verbeek, yep.
Pat Verbeek played on the Rangers for a little bit too. He was
Yeah,
a
he
pretty
did.
scrappy little player. He was pretty good. Had a
But I
little
think
fight
his
to him.
I think his asking price for either one of those two players is going to specifically for Henrique, it's going to be a little high. I don't know about Vetrano, but I think those two players would be the ideal players that the Rangers may be looking for their first line right wing and possible third line center. What do you think about those two guys?
I like them both. We talked about this as well over the year. We'll stick to the Ducks specifically for now. Vetrano, he's an easy fit. He signed into next year as well, so I think there's a bonus. Like we could actually keep him from one more year on a reasonable contract at 3-point-something million. The cap goes up by $4 million next year as well. You got to figure we're probably not re-signing Kakko. He may be part of the package because he's a $2 million hit. So you're almost Vetrano gives you instant. He's instant coffee. He's instant offense. He knows Zibanejad and Kreider. He's a spot up shooter. He's got speed. He can get in the corners if he has to. And he does everything the Rangers need right now, and he's at a good price. So I think he's someone that the Rangers have to go high on. Vetrano being an all-star this year, I think raises his value to probably a first-round pick. And listen, we don't need a first-round pick. Gabriel Perreault is going to be a star in this league, I believe. He's a steal that we got him in the first round last year. And Brendan Othmann, he's proven himself. He's a good player, and he may be an effective player as well. So we have two wingers in the pipeline that are first-round picks. We do not need picks. We have right now an opportunity, maybe 2 years, to win the Stanley Cup, to seriously win the Stanley Cup, because we have Shesterkin signed at $5.5 million. Believe me when I tell you, he will be the highest-paid goalie if he has another season like last year, next year, or the Vezina year. He will. He's going to make probably $11 million, and they're going to pay him. So that means the rest of the lineup, like in the NFL, you sign a quarterback, you got to move it around. So we have one of the best goalies in the league at this price. The time is right now. Panarin and Trouba for another 2 years, at that price. Everyone's here. Everyone's ready to go. Everyone's signed. Everyone's locked in. Everyone's here. Lafreniere for one more year as well. So there's no reason to even consider not trading a first-round pick. And anybody that says we need to keep a first-round pick just doesn't know what they're talking about and doesn't understand the moment. So a first-round pick is something that I have no problem getting rid of. Now, maybe last year I would have said maybe we got to wait, but this year I do not want to have my first-round pick available because there's no reason why we shouldn't get rid of him. So that's one. And then we go to Kaapo Kakko, who he's at the end of his contract this year. So, are we re-signing him next year? I don't think so. I don't know. What is he going to ask for? Is it worth it? Is there a younger team where he's going to get first line minutes consistently on a team and get the power play time? Kakko's never been on a power play with first line guys. The Rangers have an elite power play, so I think the Rangers could move on from Kakko. Now, I love his game as a third liner, he's great along the boards. He plays his ass off. He plays great defense. He's strong on the puck. He's a talented and skilled player, but we need production right now. Not next year, not in the future. We'll see. Right now. Vetrano gives you that production immediately. He's in the prime of his career right now. He's grizzled. He knows how to work the game a little bit more. Now we don't have Heedle now. Heedle, we don't even know his long-term status. Like, he's going to be back next year, and if he is, he's going to be our third line center. We had this debate earlier in the year with Heedle and Trocheck. If Heedle's back, he should get in the lineup. But now you cannot possibly, after this season, take Trocheck off the second line, period. He's our second line center unless he's hurt or something else happens now. So Heedle's our third line center for next year, but Henrique could be an insurance policy, but his cap hit is a lot. Maybe you bring him in, and then in the offseason, all right, let's deal Henrique or Heedle or Henrique or whatever way it goes, and at least you have another center in the mix. So it's going to be cap gymnastics, but if you want to bring both of those guys, Giancarlo, you have to get rid of a player on salary. You can't just get rid of picks. So if you get both, Henrique and Vetrano, you almost have to get rid of Kakko because of his position he plays, where he is on his contract, and the fact that he's making 2.1 on the books. So you can't get both players from Anaheim without getting rid of Kakko, in my opinion, and a first. I mean, so a first and Kakko, I think, is the minimum. And then I think if we can get a team to take some more salary from Henrique, we'd probably have to compensate that on a later round pick. Look, we got to empty the tank. We are done with waiting, and we have great prospects waiting in the pipeline. So it's not like we're giving away like what Boston did, what Florida did, where they gave away everybody, or in Tampa too, they gave away a lot of these players. So we're in a really good position. I think Drury's done a phenomenal job. I think we may have gone overboard with the star aspect last year, and we thought that it would just fit because they're stars, and it didn't work. And I think now he's going to get two role-playing guys that are going to fit really well. I would love Henrique and Vetrano. If we can't get those two guys, I would love Anthony Duclair. I think I think he'd fit perfectly. He's a playoff performer that can get it done, and he would definitely love to come back here.
He's getting hot.
He's getting hot, and he was last year with the Florida Panthers. He was a force, and he was great in Columbus too, and he's played with Panarin as well. So he's Duclair would be a very, very good fit here. And then I think for other centers, not really sure who else is out there. You did mention Jordan Eberle.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to those. Those. I just wanted you to finish up on the Adam Henrique and Frank.
Yeah,
Vetrano.
I think it's great, man. I'd love him. I'd love to have him.
I totally agree with you. In order to get those two guys, you have to, one, give up picks. Two, you're gonna have to give up somebody on the roster, whether that's Kakko or someone else, because you're gonna have to make it work under the cap. And I mean, not for nothing, both of those guys are making $3.65 million this year. I don't know what they're making next year. I'm assuming they're going to be making around the same amount. And with the cap space going up, that shouldn't be a problem keeping them around for another year, being that both players are under contract for 2025. The next pair is another pair that's been talked about a lot, and you just mentioned one of them, Jordan Eberle and Alex Wennberg. They're with the Kraken. They're both on expiring contracts, so they're rental players. I don't know if the Rangers are going to have any kind of plan on keeping them beyond that by extending them, but that's conversation for the offseason. I think these two guys are pretty good additions as well. Only thing is, they're going to cost you a bit more than your Adam Henrique and Frank Vetrano, because Eberle is $5.5 million. He comes off the books at the end of the year, and Wennberg is making $4.5 million. So that's a lot of money. I don't even know if the Rangers could make this deal with the Kraken to get both of those players back without dumping some salary back to the Kraken. Kakko obviously isn't going to be the only. I mean, Kakko isn't going to get the job done. Draft picks aren't going to get the job done. You're still going to have too much money on a cap. So I think maybe one or the other is going to be ideal for the New York Rangers. If that was going to be the case, which one of these two players would you want? Eberle is 34 years old, I believe.
Yeah,
Eberle and Wennberg, I think, is 29.
Eberle is he's a high draft pick. I mean, he's had a long career. I think he was drafted by the Oilers, and he went to the Islanders. He's a very good player, all-around player, great skater. great along the wall, can make plays, can finish. He's a great supporting player. I think he'd do very well with the Rangers. Wenberg, I'm not really as high on Wenberg, to be honest with you. I think he's good. I think Henrique is much better as a center. If I had to, if for a play now for a long regular season, maybe Wenberg lasts a little bit longer, doesn't get dinged up as much, but in a stretch playoff run, you want Henrique. Henrique is just he's a veteran. He's been there. He's won it already. He knows what he's doing.
Well, he could definitely he's very good on the faceoffs. He's very good on a penalty kill, and he could definitely play on a power play too. So those are skill sets that you normally don't get from every center that you trade for.
And I think the benefit of the Seattle guys is that their contracts get off the books, so we don't have to really worry about them.
Right.
They could re-sign back. I mean, if Eberle has, maybe we do a deal with the Kraken and he has a great time, maybe he would come back at $3 million. I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, I think there is an appeal for players to finish out their career as a Ranger to try to win a cup. So I think we have that allure going for us if we get someone on an expiring contract. We've done a good job in the past with people like St. Louis, with other players that have stayed past their expiring contract where they've came back. So there is room for, I think there's a play there that Drury can move. Now, I think Kaapo Kakko would be a perfect fit for Seattle. I think he'd be a great fit for Anaheim too. That's another thing that Drury's is got to sell them is you have a number 2 overall pick with a world of skill who just hasn't had the opportunity to crack the lineup on an elite team. You put him on a power play with some good players in Anaheim, the young players they got coming up the pipeline, and the young Kraken players that they've drafted, and Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, who knows so there's an appeal there as well for the Kraken. I think what you said though makes a lot of sense. There's only so much cap space that we have. And if they're going to retain 50% on some of these salaries, they're going to want picks in return.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Vetrano though is so interesting because he's got 1 year left and he will stay. And that's because next year, I think that's the perfect scenario. If I had to do one or the other, I think it would definitely be Anaheim, because the familiarity, the fans love Vetrano. And he's 1 more year. You have to get rid of Kakko if you get Vetrano, in my opinion. And I would be willing to do that, because you're not going to keep Kakko next year anyway. So and you have Vetrano next year, so you're getting so much back in return. A first-round pick, and then you're going to have to probably get rid of another pick. You maybe want to dangle Zach Jones in there. You maybe want to dangle another one of these. You can't do Othman or Perreault. Those are off limits, according to Drury, and I would definitely agree. But we have some defensive prospects as well we can maybe dangle out there. And we don't have to really do anything else. I think we do have every other position of need. I think we have a lot of role players that have stepped up and done good things. We don't need like a Tyler Mott. We don't need another 4th line guy like we did a few years ago, when we went to that big run against Tampa where we got 3 players. I don't think we need 3 players. It's interesting that we have 2 scenarios with 1 team. I think that increases the likelihood of that it could happen. But if I had to pick one, I think the Anaheim trade makes a lot of sense. You told me that there was other ones too. You mentioned Ensel. I mean, dude, no way.
Well, we'll get to that one in a minute. And the reason why I wanted to get to that one is because I think Pittsburgh is dangling him, but I think the asking price is just so astronomical to where the Rangers would have to probably give up 2 first-round picks for this guy. And since we're talking about him, we might as well go ahead and talk about him. Jake Guentzel is a right winger for the Pens. He's played on a line with Crosby. He's played with Malkin. Dude, he's been a phenomenal player. He's been a phenomenal player. There's no doubt about it. But the Pittsburgh Penguins are at a juncture to where now they have to make a decision of what they want to do with the remaining years that they have left with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin.
And
do they
Erik
trade
Karlsson and Letang and everybody? Yeah.
So right now the idea they're pushing the idea out there that they're looking to they're dangling Guentzel out there, but the asking price I believe is 2 first rounders and NHL ready players.
Yeah.
I mean that's outrageous. That is for one first round pick is fine, but two is just
They're not going to
ridiculous.
get Pittsburgh's not going to get that. They don't. They're not unless the team overpays for it.
Gensel is making $6 million this year,
A
and he
lot.
comes off the books. So you
He
give it
comes off
if
next
you
year off the books. Yeah,
he
that's
comes off the
enticing though.
books this year. No, this year after this season.
The Islanders are the only team that I can think of that could maybe pull it off. But I mean, there are teams in the East that have a little cap space. Lamoriello has not swung big yet. He got Bo Horvat. That was a big signing. But if the Islanders are in the mix, they may want to do it. But they're gonna have to get rid of a lot. New building. They got Patrick Waugh, but I don't know if they're in a. Will the Flyers do it? That's a risky. They're not going to go to Philly. He's on Pittsburgh. So like,
Yeah.
where are you going to go? I mean, I don't think there's any room on Florida. Florida would be interesting. They'd have to move things around. That would be dangerous if he went to Florida. The Rangers don't have the money for him, and I just don't. I like the role playing. I don't think we need star players. It doesn't always work out. Like everyone always thinks you pick up a star, you're automatically just going. Like it doesn't always work like that. Look at Boston last year. They didn't go anywhere. I mean, like you don't just because you pick up star players, and the Rangers did that too, doesn't mean anything. So I would avoid Gensel.
I
But I love him
would
as a player.
definitely agree with you. I was just throwing it out there because of the fact that
Yeah.
you were willing to give up the first round picks. I was just curious
Yeah,
to see
it's
if
not
you'd
for
give
him.
up two for Gensel. But here are some other names that I thought were pretty interesting that have come up and have been linked to the Rangers one way or another. I don't even know for sure if they have or people are just talking out of their asses. Anthony Mantha of the Capitals. He's a right winger.
He's big,
Five
big kid.
$5.7 million. He's having a pretty good season this year, but he had a down year last year.
Yeah.
For $5.7 million.
He
Is
is
it worth it?
6'5". He's a monster. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a big time player. I don't know if he's a great fit for our roster. We need a sniper. Like we need a Vetrano. He could just wire the puck from anywhere.
All right.
Sometimes you need a guy like that.
How about Jason Zucker? He's on the Coyotes this year on a 1-year deal, making $5.3 million.
He's way overpaid. He's way overpaid. I mean, he's not worth $5 million. I mean,
Well, he got paid because he was playing with the Pittsburgh Penguins and he was playing alongside of Crosby.
right. I mean, and they picked him up on a trade as well.
No, he signed a 1-year deal as a free
he signed
agent
a 1
because
year.
yeah, because Pittsburgh.
But
didn't want
they
to bring
acquired him
back.
at the deadline from Minnesota a few years ago, and then he re-signed. The Penguins tried to re-sign like all their guys they picked up because they thought it would be work with Crosby, and it didn't work. So I don't think Zucker is going to really move the needle as much.
How about he could be a possible third, even fourth line center, Nick Dowd of the Capitals. He's making cheap money. He's only making $1.3 million this year.
I like his physicality a lot. So if
He would be a good fit on the third or fourth line.
Yeah, I think like even on the fourth line, if you slide Goodrow to the wing, he could be like a more physical Mott.
Yep.
I don't mind Dowd just at the value that you would get him at in terms of price. If there was nothing else,
He signed through 2025, so you would have him this year and next.
I mean, I don't hate it, but it doesn't really get me going.
All right, my next two are former Rangers, Vladdy Tarasenko and Pavel Buchnevich.
Buchnevich is so enticing, and we did some deals with them. With Sammy Blais.
He's signed through 2025 at $5.8 million.
You know what? Like it's if the Rangers again, we'd have to get rid of Kakko for that.
Obviously,
he would be a great fit with Kreider and Zibanejad. The fans would go nuts. Plays physical. He's developed into such a great player. He reminds me of what Kakko could be.
He had already taken a next step when the Rangers let him go.
Yeah, I think that like he turned into what we hope Kakko can be. I think like Buchnevich is like it took him a while to get going. Like he was benched, and then it took him like 4 or 5 years to really cook. And then we at the one point we had to move on from him. But I would entertain that. But then you couldn't really do any other moves. You kind of be hamstrung. What I love about the Vetrano and the Henrique is that they're already willing to take some of his salary. And Vetrano has that term for 1 more year, and he's only 3-something million. So I think the numbers work better. But if you go and get Buchnevich, where do you go from there? Then you go for Wenberg? No, they want to give you both. So
Right. No, well, not
you got to
necessarily.
be
I don't
careful.
think I think the Kraken are trying to push any team that's approaching them about Wenberg to try to push Eberle on them. But
Yeah,
that's necessarily that doesn't necessarily have to
you're
get the
gonna have to
deal
give up a
done.
lot for Buchnevich because he's got term on one more year, and he's a point per game player, and he's also not like 35. He's like in his late 20s. So again, it's the age too. The value you can also. I mean, Buchnevich, that would be a great pickup. You'd have to get rid of a lot of assets, and then I think you'd probably have to give up too much in total to get the rest. Then you'd have to settle for like a lower level center, in my opinion, in terms of term, in terms of salary. Like, you're gonna have to give up Kako and a first for Buchnevich, I think. Like I with his value and at his price point, like I think that's tough. That's a tough one.
Kako and a first round pick for Buchnevich, really?
He's a point per game player, and the Rangers need it. And there's, I mean, for a first round pick, the Rangers are gonna have a first round pick in the late 20s. That's not enough for Buchnevich. So,
Right.
and Kako, he has an expiring deal. They may not even want him. And I don't think they have some good wingers in the system. So the Blues, do they want Kako as much? Maybe they don't. I think you have to, because they're like a middle of the road team. Like they're struggling, but I think Kako needs to go to like a really base level team that's just kind of starting out, trying to get their way. That's why I think the Seattle expansion team would be fit, but I think the Anaheim fit just makes more and more sense. Verbeek played on the Rangers. Drury and them probably know each other well from playing, so I could see something happening. If I had to put my money on it, it would be Kako, a first, and then maybe like Zach Jones, or maybe like another conditional pick if they take salary. If we can do better than that and get those two players, I think Drury at a home run. But I think that's what we would have to expect.
Well, according to some reports, what's his face? Alex Wenberg was taken out of morning skate this morning with the Kraken because of some rumors swirling that he was being dealt.
Yeah, they don't do that. Yeah, he's gone. He's gone somewhere.
I haven't seen anything pop up yet, but I'm just curious to know where the hell he's heading. I know the Boston Bruins were very interested in him. The Vegas Golden Knights were interested in him, and I'm sure that there were some other teams. Maybe Toronto was also interested in him.
Where does Toronto get their cap space? I mean,
I have no idea, man.
It boggles my mind, bro. They just signed Nylander to $1 million years. They have Matthews at $13 million, and Marner and Tavares and Morgan Riley. Where? That's maybe that's why they'll never have a goalie and never have defense, because
that's probably where they're saving all their money.
Tyler Bertuzzi 1 year for $6 million. Where do they get this money?
No idea.
Their cap is it has to be higher. I still can't figure it out, but I don't think Toronto is gonna win with that coach. Let's do some quick. I got a few minutes here. If you didn't have anything else you wanted to talk about, I wanted to kind of go through some predictions. I think the Rangers have a shot, and I'm not the type of person that's gonna come up here and just say the Rangers are gonna win a Stanley Cup. I'm not gonna do that. But we get some reinforcements here. There's a chance this year to do it, because Boston is not the same as they've been. You don't have Bergeron and Krejci are huge parts of their success,
and they're gone.
And they're not there, and you just can't replace that. You can't replace what they do in the playoffs. And Chara, you can say as well. The last couple of years as well, you miss him. So I would say, and in Toronto, there's something about that coach. He doesn't have the team. They have too many big star personalities, and they got whooped by Florida, a team that was just well coached by Paul Maurice, who's been in the NHL forever. And look at Florida now. Bobrovsky's hot. Coming out of that Central, I don't know if Toronto's going to get out of there. Florida looks dangerous, and they look like a complete team. Carolina is always there, but the Rangers have their number, and we'll knock on wood, but they need to get a superstar. They always bring in these system players that make $4 or $5 million that can forecheck, they'll have 40 shots on goal, but there's no game breaking player that is going to take them over the edge. There's no Panarin on the team. And their goaltending, and that's a situation that's kind of up and down. So, and the Devils, we were afraid of the Devils this year. We predicted that they might be a threat. They're going through now. If they can get hot, if they can get in, they're going to be dangerous because they have a lot of talent and an all-world skill. Dougie Hamilton is a big loss for the Devils. And Lindy Ruff, I think he's a popular coach. I know that they fired him, but Lindy Ruff is very popular with the players from what I know, and they love him. He's outside smoking darts. Outside, he's an old school guy, and the kids love him. I mean, I don't know how they're going to respond, and they don't have a goalie still. And they're behind in the standings, and they got to crawl. They have a tough schedule ahead. They can't seem to get any good luck. Are the Flyers good? The Flyers are overachieving because of good coaching. So who's the other team? Who are the wild card teams? Like Tampa I mean, there's just nobody really that.
Well, right now it's Detroit and Tampa in the wild card.
I think Detroit is all overachieving as well. I mean, a lot of inexperience. They got some good players.
Just look at it this way: in the Eastern Conference and probably even in the Western Conference too. I haven't looked at the Western Conference standings yet, but there's no clear-cut
there's not
dominant team in the Eastern Conference or in the Western Conference for that matter.
Right.
Florida and the Rangers are 86 and 84. You got the Bruins at 84. Then you have the Maple Leafs at 78, Carolina at 78, and then you have a whole bunch of teams bunched up at 72, 71.
Yeah.
You know, you got
I think Vegas, if they can get healthy, they're very dangerous. I like the LA Kings, but they're kind of like flirting around the postseason right now. But I think they're a great, complete team. They got a lot of good players. Dallas is interesting. Dallas is very deep. They lost Klingberg. They're defensively. They may need to add somebody, but they have a deep roster. Their top 9 on Dallas is as good as anybody in the league. Sagan, Ben, Matt Duchene, Robertson, Joe Pavelski.
What a season match Duchene is having.
And then
with
they have
the
that other
Dallas
kid
Stars.
too who's sick. I forget his name. Rupe Hintz. They have a really, really, really good team. Dallas to me can go to the Cup. And they have a good goalie too, Jake Ottinger. They're dangerous. Dallas scares me. The Winnipeg Jets, they're having a hell of a season. They got a lot of talent, but they haven't proven themselves in the playoffs to do it. Dallas has gotten there. They've went to a Cup final recently. So, Edmonton is always scary because you have the 2 best players in the league, and you can't count them out in a series.
Vancouver is the Florida Panthers of the West.
Vancouver is on fire. They are so well rounded.
Yep.
They just signed their best player long term. That's going to give that energy. That's in the city a boost. They're dying to win. I mean, West has some real. That's going to be an absolute war in the West. We don't got to worry about the West. We got to play one of those teams. I still think. Listen, the Rangers right now. We have to. Number one, we got to stay healthy. Can't fuck around and get stupid injuries. I think Laviollette's got to be watching the minutes of his players a little bit. We definitely need reinforcements. But man, dude, we have a chance, dude. Like we have an actual rational chance to do it this year. As long as Shesterkin is playing at a good or elite level. He just has to be good or very good. He doesn't have to carry us. He doesn't. He just has to be himself. And if he plays above that, he doesn't have to be as good as Lundqvist was. He doesn't have to carry the team. He just has to play well.
Well, as long as he's got a goals against average below 2 and a save percentage around 930, 940.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Oh my God! I mean, you can't see a lot of teams scoring a lot of goals on them, regardless of who that team is. Especially if the Rangers defense plays well in front of them. And quite honestly, they've had their moments where they're allowing a lot of odd man rushes down and 2-on-1s, but you know they once they fix that, I think with
Yeah.
Shesterkin being on on a hot path here, heading into the stretch here at the final 20 games of the season. Listen, I think Shesterkin's going to be fine. I think he's finally found
Yeah.
his game. Now it's up to the rest of the team. I think with the deadline coming up, if Jury does what he does best and acquires some players, they're going to add some depth to this with the loss of Hedel and what's his face
Wheeler.
Wheeler. I think we should be okay.
Yeah. I think we had this is, I think a few years ago they caught us by surprise. I think we kind of went a little bit further than we thought. It was a great story, especially coming 3-1 down from Pittsburgh and then, Carolina having to fight back there. But we're in first right now. Like, we're not in third or second. We have a chance to get home ice. I mean, and if we play good, there's a tough stretch we have right now. We played well against Toronto. We got a point, that we could have won that game easily. I think a couple of moves away, if we, hold the fort, stay healthy, home ice is huge. And it's tough to play in the Garden in the playoffs. And, we may not get the toughest of draws the first round. And then you got to let the two other teams fight it out. You got to, Carolina is going to be there, and you got to figure, I don't know if the Flyers are going to stick around there. I mean, maybe the Devils creep up, maybe someone gets in, we'll see. But, the Central Division looks a little bit tougher to me right now, which is hard to believe after last year, right? I mean, we thought that the Metro was going to be the best. It looks like the Central Division, or not the Central, the Atlantic Division with Boston, and I think that could be a tougher division to get out of. This looks like a year where we should really consider and expect this team to go far. And I just think, we got to win the third period. I think it's tied 2-2.
No, they just took the lead 3-2.
Rangers.
No, Florida.
You're a fucking Grinch.
Yeah.
You are bad luck. Bad luck city.
They just literally scored. Yeah, Laviolette looks pissed. I don't know what the fuck's going on there.
Well,
so it's 3-2 Florida, 13:49 left in the third.
Gonna catch the rest of this game.
Ryan Lundberg just scored. I don't know who the fuck he is.
Lundberg from Office Space? From Lundberg fucked her.
Oh God! But all right. So what are your predictions for the East?
I don't even want to go there because I don't want to jinx anything. I think the Rangers are going to be first. I think the Rangers.
You really want the Rangers to get that President's Trophy?
President's Trophy is first in the NHL. We may not. The West may have a team that rises to the top.
Well, they're not that far off. I mean,
they're not.
Vancouver's only at 85 points. We're only a point behind them. Everybody else is at 83.
Yeah,
or 84.
I mean, so the President's Trophy notoriously has been a curse. So I don't want the President's Trophy, but I think we could finish first in our. If we can win our division, I'd be happy. Get a wild
You mean finish
draw.
first in the conference and get over, home games?
Home ice advantage would be huge.
Gotcha.
Would be huge, especially going against the team. If we can get home ice advantage against, we got to win and get there first, but be healthy first. But the Rangers, I think at this pace, if they hold water, they could be first. Carolina's going to be on our heel. They're going to make a run. They're going to be there. And then I don't know who's going to be third. I do not see the Flyers staying there. I can see them kind of falling off. I just think they're overachieving. I can see someone else getting in. I don't know who's right behind them.
Well, the Islanders are 5 points behind them.
Devils are farther back than that. Damn.
Yeah, the Devils are. The Devils are. They're 7 points behind the Flyers.
The Flyers. That's a tough ask for the Flyers.
Unless the Devils can fix their goaltending situation, I don't see the Devils going anywhere. I really don't care if they make the coaching change or not. I mean, granted, they've got a lot of talent on that team. They just aren't playing well this year. I mean, blame it on the injuries, but their goaltending has been horrendous.
So that's what I'm going with, and then I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into too many predictions because I don't want to jinx anything. We got to get together before the playoffs start.
Yeah, no problem.
And we need health. We need good goaltending. And then we'll touch on the Giants as well. We'll get into the draft.
Yeah, we definitely got to do the pre-draft
episode.
Special. Yeah, because I caught a good portion of the combine this weekend. I DVR'd the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. I didn't really DVR anything else. I got through half the recording yesterday, and I saw a lot of good stuff, specifically from the running backs and the wide receivers. I didn't see everything on the quarterbacks, but I was really, really looking forward to seeing Penix, only because I think that there's a good chance that the Giants don't go quarterback with their sixth pick and wait until the second round, or maybe move back up into the first round with the extra second round pick that they have.
That's something we'll discuss. I'm thinking
so-
if he's around in the 20s, I think the Giants have to use one of those extra seconds and get up.
Yeah,
For
we'll
sure.
see what happens, but we'll definitely talk about that. Jamie, thanks for coming on with me. It was a great time talking Rangers. Hopefully
All
they
right,
can
Cap.
come back and tie this game and win this outright.
Let's get it done, man.
And then
See you soon.
we'll talk again before the trade deadline.
You bet, brother.
Let's
See
go
ya.
Rangers. Peace.
Peace.